Ever walked into a room and forgotten why you went there? Or misplaced your keys? Of course you have. It happens to all of us. But where do we draw the line between everyday forgetfulness and something more serious? Today, we're going to talk about dementia, and I promise you'll learn about 6 early signs that many people mistakenly attribute to just being tired or getting older. Understanding these signals is the first step toward helping yourself or your loved ones. So, let's break down what dementia actually is. It's not a specific disease, but rather a general term describing a wide range of symptoms. Think of dementia like the word fever. Fever tells you something's wrong in the body, but it doesn't name the underlying cause. Similarly, dementia is a symptom, most often caused by Alzheimer's disease, but it can also be due to other conditions. The key thing to understand is, it's not a normal part of aging. So let's dive into the first and perhaps most widely known, yet often misunderstood, sign. Sign number 1, memory loss that genuinely interferes with daily life. We all forget things. That's completely normal. Forgetting the name of someone you just met at a party, walking into a room and forgetting why you went there, spending 5 minutes looking for your glasses, only to realise they've been on your head the whole time. Sound familiar? That's just everyday absent-mindedness, often a result of fatigue or information overload. Our brain is simply saying, "Hey, give me a minute, I'm a bit busy here." Usually, you'll remember it eventually, or with a small prompt. But with early dementia, something entirely different happens. It's not about a temporary access denied to information. It's about a complete file deletion from memory. The person doesn't just forget details, but entire events, especially recent ones. Imagine this. An hour ago, you thoroughly discussed weekend plans with your mom. Now she calls and asks with genuine curiosity, "Did we talk about what we're doing on Saturday?" And she's not pretending. She genuinely doesn't remember that conversation. For her, it simply never existed. Here's another vivid example. Forgetting where you put the TV remote. That's one thing. But finding that remote in the refrigerator and having absolutely no recollection of how it got there, that's entirely different. This isn't just absent-mindedness. It's a breakdown in logic and memory of one's own actions. The same applies to important appointments. Missing a meeting because it slipped your mind, that happens. But consistently forgetting doctor's appointments, even if they're written on the calendar, or forgetting to take daily medications at the same time every day, that's a serious red flag. Here's the key difference. With normal aging, you might forget a name, but you still remember the person themselves. With dementia, you might not recognize a close friend's face. You might ask the same question repeatedly because the answer simply doesn't stick in memory for even a minute. The person begins to rely more and more on notes or constant reminders from family members for things they used to do automatically. So, the main question isn't, "Am I forgetting things?" but rather, "How often and what exactly am I forgetting?" If you or a loved one are regularly forgetting important, recently learned information and it's disrupting daily life, that's a critical warning sign that deserves your closest attention. This isn't just a memory lapse, it's memory gradually fading away. Let's move on to the second red flag. This one isn't so much about remembering the past as it is about functioning in the present. It's about difficulties with planning and problem solving. Our brain has a kind of master manager or executive director. This part is responsible for helping us formulate a plan, break it down into steps, and execute it systematically. It's precisely this executive function that is often among the first to be affected by dementia. What was once a simple routine suddenly becomes an overwhelming challenge. A prime example is cooking. We're not talking about accidentally oversalting soup or getting distracted and burning toast. That happens to everyone. We're talking about someone who has made the same borscht recipe their entire life, suddenly staring at cabbage and potatoes, utterly bewildered about what to do next. They might forget a key ingredient, mix up the steps, or simply stop halfway, staring blankly at the pot. It's not just a momentary distraction. They've lost the entire mental roadmap for a process they've known intimately for decades. Another critically important area is managing finances. Someone who has always meticulously managed their budget and paid bills on time suddenly starts making egregious errors. They might pay the same bill twice or completely overlook another. Simple tasks like counting change at the store or understanding a basic receipt become incredibly challenging. It's not that they've forgotten how to do math. It's that the multi-step process, checking the amount, writing a check or entering card details, confirming payment, breaks down into disconnected fragments. This also extends to concentration. It becomes challenging to follow the plot of a film or a book. Someone might start reading a page, and by the end, forget what it was about. Even simple games like cards or checkers, whose rules they once knew by heart, can become baffling. They simply can't hold the rules, the opponent's moves, and their own strategy in mind all at once. It's crucial to understand the distinction. An older person without dementia can still make mistakes. They might take longer to learn a new smartphone or need assistance with online bill payments. That's perfectly normal. But they are capable of learning and ultimately mastering the task. Someone with early dementia, however, faces a fundamental inability to construct and retain a sequence of actions. Their internal executive has quite simply stopped showing up for work, and that is far more serious than mere forgetfulness or inattention. The third item on our list can be particularly deceptive because it's so easy to dismiss as mere tiredness or inattention. We're talking about difficulties performing routine tasks at home, at work, or during leisure time. Think about the actions you perform on autopilot every day. How do you drive to work? How do you use a microwave? How do you send an email? You don't consciously think about each step. Your body and brain do it automatically. This is called muscle memory or procedural memory, and it's precisely this type of memory that starts to fail when dementia sets in. The most classic and heartbreaking example is when someone gets lost in a familiar place. They might head to a store they've visited for the past 20 years, only to stop halfway, utterly disoriented, not knowing where they are or where they're going. Or they might get behind the wheel to visit a friend living just a block away and get completely lost. This isn't just a momentary wrong turn. It's a complete breakdown of their internal navigation system for routes they once knew by heart. The same applies at home. Someone might forget how to use a TV remote they've held thousands of times. They might walk up to a washing machine and not remember which button to press to start a load. This isn't because the technology is complicated. It's because the sequence of actions, once hardwired into their subconscious, has simply been erased. At work, it manifests as an employee, once a professional in their field, suddenly struggling with basic tasks. An accountant might forget how to reconcile a balance sheet, or a teacher might forget how to prepare a simple lesson plan. They haven't become lazy or unintelligent. Their brain has simply lost access to their well-learned professional skills. Even hobbies and leisure activities suffer. Someone who adored knitting might pick up needles and yarn and not recall how to make the first stitch. A passionate chess player might forget how a knight moves. This is particularly painful because it's not just a skill that's lost, but a source of joy and self-fulfillment. The key difference from normal age-related changes here is significant. An elderly person might ask for help understanding a new smartphone or a new computer program. However, someone with dementia begins to need assistance with tasks they once performed effortlessly, even with their eyes closed. This isn't a problem with learning something new. It's a problem with recalling and reproducing what is old and intimately familiar. And that is a very concerning sign. Now let's turn our attention to a symptom that can truly frighten and confuse both the individual and their loved ones. This is the fourth symptom: disorientation in time and space. For a healthy individual, the awareness of time and place is a constant. We wake up in the morning knowing what day of the week it is, the date, the month, and the year. We know where we are in our apartment, in our city, in our country. This happens automatically. We don't need to check a calendar every minute. This information is like the desktop background of our mind. For someone with early dementia, this background begins to waver and distort. The simplest manifestation is confusion with dates. A person might be absolutely certain it's Tuesday, when in reality it's already Friday. They might forget the current month or even the season. They could start preparing for New Year's in July, genuinely not understanding why everyone else is surprised. Over time, this disorientation worsens. A person might lose the sense of time passing throughout the day. They might wake up from an afternoon nap and start getting ready for work, thinking it's morning. Or, conversely, begin preparing for bed at noon. They live as if outside the general flow of time, in their own disrupted rhythm. An even more alarming aspect is spatial disorientation. We've already mentioned that a person might get lost on a familiar street. But here, we're talking about a deeper impairment. A person might be in their own living room and momentarily forget where they are. They might walk from the bedroom into the hallway and not understand how to get back. This isn't just forgetfulness, it's a temporary loss of their own home's mental map. Imagine this feeling. You open your eyes and don't understand where you are or how you got there. For a few seconds, it can be terrifying. Now imagine these moments becoming more frequent and lasting longer. A person might remember their name, remember their relatives, but completely fail to understand why they are in that particular room. Of course, any of us can misspeak and say the wrong day of the week, or, waking up on vacation in an unfamiliar hotel, feel disoriented for a second. The distinction lies in the frequency and severity of this state. If your loved one regularly confuses dates, lives out of sync with the season, or gets lost in familiar spaces, this isn't just absent-mindedness. It's a signal that their brain has stopped correctly processing basic information about the surrounding world, and this requires immediate attention. The fifth symptom often goes unnoticed or is mistaken for a simple vision issue. It manifests as difficulties in processing visual information and understanding spatial relationships. It's important to grasp immediately. This isn't about deteriorating eyesight. Someone might have a comprehensive eye exam, and the ophthalmologist will confirm their eyes are perfectly fine. The issue isn't with the camera that captures the world, but with the processor that interprets the image. In other words, the problem lies in the brain. How does this manifest in daily life? One of the most common symptoms is difficulty with reading. The person might complain that letters jump around or lines blur together. They might start tracing lines with their finger to keep their place, even if they used to read fluently. It becomes difficult for them to shift their gaze from one line to the next. As a result, reading, which once brought pleasure, turns into an exhausting chore, and the person simply gives up on it. Another striking example is trouble with judging distance and depth. They might struggle to pour water into a glass without spilling, or miss the mark when placing a cup on a table. Navigating stairs becomes challenging because the steps appear flat or distorted, leading to a fear of falling. Driving in the car becomes particularly dangerous, as judging the distance to the car ahead or the speed of an approaching object becomes almost impossible. There can also be issues with recognizing objects and faces. No, this isn't yet the stage where someone fails to recognize close relatives. In the early stages, for instance, they might look at a chair and take a long time to understand what the object is, or upon seeing their reflection in a mirror, momentarily be startled, mistaking it for a stranger. This happens because the brain can't properly assemble individual visual details, like legs, backrest, and seat, into a single cohesive image of a chair. Another specific symptom is difficulty distinguishing contrasting colours. For example, they might struggle to see a white light switch on a white wall, or find a light-coloured object on a light-coloured tablecloth. The world for them seems to lose its clarity and contrast. Again, all these problems are easily dismissed as age-related vision or fatigue. Perhaps new glasses are needed, the family might think. But if new glasses don't help, and the person increasingly spills tea, stumbles on flat ground, and complains they can't read, it's time to consider something deeper. Perhaps the problem is much more profound, and the culprit isn't the eyes but the brain, which has forgotten how to properly see the world. And finally, the sick sign. This one is often most evident to those around the person because it affects their very essence, their personality and mood. We're talking about sudden and unexplained shifts in character and behaviour. Imagine someone you've known for many years. They have their own habits, their unique communication style, and their characteristic reactions to various situations. And suddenly, this person begins to change. Not gradually, as might happen with age, but quite sharply and drastically. One of the most common manifestations is profound apathy and a significant loss of interest in life. Someone who once eagerly tended their garden suddenly neglects it. A passionate football fan stops watching their favourite team's matches. An outgoing and cheerful individual starts avoiding friends and family, preferring to stay home alone. It's not just that they're tired or upset, they become indifferent to everything. The spark that once animated them simply fades away. On the opposite end of the spectrum is the emergence of emotions that are completely out of character. A calm and balanced person might become irritable, suspicious, or even aggressive. They might accuse loved ones of stealing their belongings, even when they themselves simply misplaced them and forgot. They might cry easily over a trifle or, conversely, laugh in a completely inappropriate situation. Their emotional thermostat seems to break down, leading to unpredictable reactions that are completely out of sync with the situation. There's also often a noticeable decline in self-awareness and self-criticism regarding their own behaviour. The person might stop paying attention to personal hygiene, wearing dirty clothes without seeming to notice. They might start saying inappropriate things in public or behave too uninhibitedly, seemingly losing their social inhibitions. It's as if they lose their grasp on what is socially acceptable and what is not. Furthermore, heightened anxiety and fear can emerge. New places, unfamiliar faces, and any deviation from their usual routine can trigger intense fear. They might constantly double-check plans or express fear of being left alone at home. The world that was once understandable and safe suddenly becomes hostile and unpredictable to them. It's important to understand that anyone can experience a bad mood or a period of apathy. But with dementia, this isn't just a temporary dip. It's a persistent and fundamental personality change. The person truly seems to become a different individual. And if you find yourself looking at your loved one and increasingly thinking, "I don't recognise them, they've never been like this before," this isn't merely a case of age-related quirks. This could be the sixth, and one of the most overt, signs that significant changes are occurring in their brain. And now for the most crucial point, the real game changer. None of these signs, when taken individually, constitutes a 100% diagnosis, but their combination, their consistent presence, and most importantly, how they differ from a person's previous behaviour, that's what should truly raise a red flag. The biggest mistake is to think it's just old age. No, normal ageing might slow us down, but it should never strip us of our personality, our ability to think, or our joy for life. Understanding this is a pivotal moment, because the sooner you or your loved ones notice these signals and consult a doctor, the greater the chances of slowing down the disease's progression. While modern medicine cannot cure dementia, it can significantly improve a patient's quality of life and grant them more precious time. Early diagnosis isn't a death sentence. It's an opportunity to act. So, let's summarise. Dementia isn't just forgetfulness. It's a complex brain disorder that manifests as difficulties with planning, spatial orientation, mood changes, and much more. And most importantly, it's not normal. Thank you for watching this important video all the way to the end. If you found this information helpful, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new episodes. And now, a question for you. Have you or your loved ones encountered similar situations in your lives? Please share your experiences in the comments below. It could be incredibly helpful for other viewers.